What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Muscle Minds with Scott Stevenson. I'm Scott McNally. All of our programming is brought to you by you guys, the people of Patreon. Thank you for all your support. We're also brought to you by Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach. Go to byobbcoach.com. That's Scott's book. You can go to that website to get the ebook, or you can go to Amazon to get the hardcover. We're also brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK. STROM SPORTS Nutrition in the UK, and SupplementSource.ca for our Canadians. Guys, we've got a treat for you today. Scott and I are you guys enjoyed the Mike Mentzer review video that we did. Today, we've got some Weider principles on deck. Scott found a great video too. This is called Training System Tape. Is it Training System Tape 2? Oh, excuse me. Joe Weider's Bodybuilding Training System Tape 2 Basic Bodybuilding Techniques. So without further ado, man, I say we just dive straight into this thing.
Going old school here.
Oh, yeah.
I watched like the first 30 seconds, so this is all new to me.
Me too.
After the first intro. Yeah, this is going to be fun.
I've seen as much as you, but I already love this title, like the screen on that. This is great. Let's see. I got to find the play button here. There we go. Oh, yeah.
First of all, the music is amazing.
Of the split system is the most...
What's that?
First of all, the music. That's the music. Yeah, that's total 80s music. I don't know if we have a date. Maybe the info for the videos tells us what date this is.
We can look later. But I should give this guy a like. This is at Bonehead070 is the guy who posted
important
this.
Principle in your bodybuilding program. Because without an understanding and the application of the Weider split system, you'll never be able to achieve a symmetrical and well-proportionate body.
Proportionate.
So that was just a second there. Just pause. That's my first thought.
Turn it down. Yeah.
Well, there's more there though. I want to.
Okay.
Pause. There's
okay.
So
we
much.
Can't pause the whole thing though, because this is a half-hour video. We're not going to. It's going to be a half hour before we even get through 5 minutes. So we got to let him talk a little. Yes.
Without the Weider principles, you're never going to. I think it's called a proportionate body. Like you're never. Like there's no way.
Only way.
It's the only way. So this is very important. So now we see Gold's Venice, of course.
Yes.
Back in the heyday.
Men and women working out in gyms around the world, but very few of them look like bodybuilders.
Ooh.
Why? Well, certainly genetics
like
has something to do with it. Some people are just more physically talented than others when it comes to building muscle. But another reason is simply this.
Steroids.
To look like a bodybuilder, you need to train like a bodybuilder. Simply lifting weights without...
Scott, I don't see you watching behind you when you do your dumbbell rows. So I think there's something there.
Doesn't work. If just lifting heavy and working hard were all it took, then a ditch digger or construction worker would end up winning the Mr. Olympia contest.
Bob Paris?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that rock music in the background.
Hi, I'm Bob Paris. Now, when you're in the gym, intensity and hard work are very important, but it's not enough just to work hard.
So pause here just for a sec.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because Bob Paris, he is like one of the classic. He's one of the guys they talk about having like the original classic physique.
Absolutely.
He's a little bit. He was after Arnold's day, but and he came out. There's a really interesting book for people who don't know, Gorilla Suit, that he wrote. Oh yeah. After his career, have you read that, Scott?
I have not, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I read it a long time ago, and I've heard that some people may have, because he wasn't maybe open, he hadn't come out of the closet, so to speak, at the time, but he was openly gay thereafter. Yeah. He had his partner was a bodybuilder, and that came known, but he didn't quite do as well as he probably should have because of that aspect of his personal life, right? Yeah. But yeah, here he is. Like this kind of, he's the first face person to speak in a Joe Weider video. I think he's on the inside. This is good.
Yeah,
he was a poster boy. So I don't know about that idea that his sexual preference had anything to do with how he plays, because he's got the Weiders on his side, at least at this time point.
Yeah.
So you should be going for an intensity of effort in the gym, and also an intensity of effect. The exercises that you're doing should have the most maximized effect on the muscles themselves. It's not just enough to push the weight. You have to know how the body part is actually working to have the most effective outcome of the exercise. When we look at the sport of bodybuilding, it's very similar to other sports.
Yeah, great physique.
If you want to become a great runner,
Amazing.
you run. If you want to become a great cyclist, you ride a bicycle. If you want to look like a bodybuilder, you need to train like a bodybuilder. You need to train in a sport-specific manner.
Specificity of training
Good calves,
means
too.
that the body responds and adapts very specifically to the kind of workout you put it through, much more specifically than you think. That's why different sports, from sprinting to marathon running to gymnastics to shot putting, all require very different kinds of training and physical preparation. And that's why it's so difficult to do well in multi-event sports like the decathlon or heptathlon, and why there are so few great athletes who compete successfully in more than one sport.
I do too. Actually, I want to bring back, look at this look.
Multi-event sports like the decathlon.
Hold on a second. Look at this. This is a look that only happened, that half shirt right there.
Right.
You don't see that anymore. You know what I'm saying?
And their shorts, too.
Oh, yeah.
Shorts they got ahead. So stop here. This is really interesting because what Bob Paris did there.
Yeah.
There's Lee the product. Cool.
Man.
It's awesome. So what he basically said in that first sort of clip is he was talking about making a mind-muscle connection. He's like, don't just train hard, need to train. I can't remember the words that he used, but it was some very nice verbiage for now we would use different terminology for. And the interesting thing here now, and I think this is where they're building up with this sports specificity idea. So the idea that the activity that you do during a sport is how you should train. So you should train specific to what the actual performance will be when you are competing. And the thing that I think the connection they're gonna make is that the Weider system is the specific sports specific way to train for bodybuilding.
Yes.
But if you follow this train of thought logically, the sports specific way to train for bodybuilding is just to start posing, because that's where you're compared.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a little hole in their logical loop. At least if I'm getting what they're putting down right now, if I've saw what they're cooking.
Yeah.
But they're gonna. I mean, here's the thing. And this is the old strategy. The strategy that will never die. It continues to work. Is whatever you're trying to sell, you take the best athletes and let them speak for you, and then automatically, or let them just be your poster people, so to speak.
Yeah.
And this is how they got where they're going. It has nothing to do with genetics or drugs, what have you. Always you choose the best athletes.
No, they didn't even talk about drugs back then at all.
Like
zero.
Zero. Yeah. So, but it's really, Bob Paris is well spoken. Obviously, Lee the Rod is extremely well spoken.
Yeah, and that could have been why they picked these guys out the gate. They're like, man, we got to get Bob out there because he's going to just tear it up with talking.
Absolutely.
You know?
Although I would love to have Ronnie doing one of these, but anyway,
yeah, right.
This is a little before he came on the scene.
Sending a specific program to the central nervous system. And anybody that's worked with a computer can tell you that a computer will respond only to specific instructions. Your body is the same way. It doesn't care what you're trying to do. It only reacts to exercises specifically as they are applied.
Over the past 50 years or so, bodybuilders have learned, largely by trial and error, what kind of workout the muscles of the body best respond to. And the proof that they've discovered something really new is the way they look. No human beings in all of history, male or female, have developed the kind of physiques you see on stage at a top professional bodybuilding contest.
And that's Lee again.
Critics of the sport sometimes claim that this incredible advancement in the ability of human beings to develop their lean body structure is the result of improved nutrition, anabolic drugs, or simply the fact that there are more bodybuilders working out more seriously than ever before. But it's really the type of training that you'll learn from the Weider system that has made the difference. The modern bodybuilding workout was developed to address the natural genetically determined capacity of the body to respond to the muscle training.
Yeah.
The physiological programming that is inherent in the neuromuscular system itself. It's the most effective and efficient form of muscle training ever conceived.
So if you're going in the gym to develop your lean body structure, being a competitor or not, why do it any other way?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. They like the way they laid that out. It was basically like, I mean, that I don't think there was like Weider was just totally dominant on the scene. There was no one. There was no competitor who could have been an opposing opinion to what was just said there, so, and they're talking about things that you would have to, and this is partly why I went to school and wanted to become a researcher, is because, not because of this video in particular, but because I kept on seeing so many things, so many claims of a scientific nature that weren't substantiated anyway, right? Okay, yeah. So what they said, and this is the thing, like, it's still to this day, it still works, is if you say something, and I have an article on Elite FTS about this, if you say something in a really convincing way, with clear, concise verbiage that sounds at least scientific, then it becomes believable.
Absolutely. Right? We see it all the time, man. Look how many people are taking a cherry-picked study today. You guys have all seen it out there, cherry-picked study, and then they base some crazy claims off of that one thing. It's happening constantly,
But it's important how they, and this was really well written, right? When you see how it's written. So, like, the way it's written, you think, I don't even have to second guess where that information comes from, because they literally have just outlined all the things that you would need, all the boxes you need to check under the Nord that you found the best system. And look, they've got there was no muscle test this time, I don't think. They've got all the best athletes.
Yeah, you don't need proof. You got Linda Murray, right? She's proof, right?
Yep, absolutely.
That is so true.
I love it.
After all, the body is a homeostatic organism. That means that it tends to resist change, whether the change is good or bad. That's why people can abuse their bodies for such a long period of time before they actually see serious damage.
So it follows that to make dramatic improvements in your physical structure, you have to find some way to force your body to change. You have to subject it to a program that's so intense and effective that it has no choice but to respond. And that's what bodybuilding type weight training is all about.
The arms on him at that point.
Yep. So progressive overload.
The basis of any kind of weight training is the principle of progressive resistance. That is, when you take a significant amount of resistance and work your muscles against it. While using this resistance, your muscles will tend to get stronger and bigger. At all. As your muscles get bigger and stronger,
I think it's a unit
slapping
thing.
on more weight to build more muscle size.
Because look at the top. Yeah, look at he's got a tank top over it.
It's a good principle. It's a smart principle. Use it.
Does he have a belt on?
There's a Greek myth that goes back thousands of years which describes the process exactly. Milos of Crotona is said to have begun picking up and lifting a young calf every day. As the calf grew larger and heavier, he continued this practice and therefore grew progressively stronger to the point where he was still able to lift the animal when it became a full-grown bull. This is exactly what you do with bodybuilding type weight training. Only instead of hefting farm animals, you use barbells, dumbbells, and various types of machines to provide the necessary resistance.
Oh, at that time it's Spinaplex.
Yes.
Right? You're using cattle pellets.
Is that the muscle adapts,
ironically enough,
as a greater load is put on that muscle during the time of doing resistance training. Progressive resistance means either increasing the intensity in one of two ways. Either a greater workload by the number of repetitions or greater workload by the number of pounds that are placed on a bar or on the piece.
I agree with all this so far, right?
Yeah. It's awesome, yeah. I mean, Weider's, there's a lot of these ideas, they're still being tested. They're still being used.
Yeah.
And they still work.
We have muscles because we live in a gravity well. Our muscles allow us to overcome the force of gravity and move around the surface of the planet. In addition to gravity,
exactly, Brandon,
also adapt to the kinds of loads we subject them to. For example, if you have a 10 horsepower motor and you subject it to a 12 horsepower load, it'll burn out. However, subject the equivalent 10 horsepower muscle to a 12 horsepower load and you eventually get a 12 horsepower muscle.
Yeah.
The key to progress in bodybuilding is to overload the muscle. Just enough to cause it to grow, but not enough to cause injury. And to continue to increase the amount of load on a regular basis as the muscle gets bigger and stronger.
On the Gladiator show, competitive show. Ray Hollett's her name, I think.
There are basically two types of muscle fibers. Red, aerobic fiber, is long-distance endurance fiber, capable of contracting over and over for long periods of time. White anaerobic fiber, on the other hand, is short-duration sprint fiber, lacking in endurance, but is 22% larger than red fiber and capable of generating much more power.
I can hear it. Okay.
Everybody who's watching, let me know if that sound needs to be adjusted at all.
Although the amount of fibers and the distribution of fiber types in various muscles of the body varies tremendously from individual to individual. And it's the kind of fiber that predominates in the body that largely determines what kind of performance that body is best suited for. Just think of the difference between a muscular sprinter and a lean endurance runner. Both types of fiber can be made bigger and stronger or hypertrophied by weight training, and top bodybuilders seem to need a mixture of both fiber types in order to be successful. If a bodybuilder is too mesomorphic, has too much thick white fiber, he or she may be too blocky and lack aesthetics to win bodybuilding contests.
Is that possible? Too mesomorphic?
They may be better suited, perhaps, to something like weightlifting. If a bodybuilder is too ectomorphic, has too much lean red fiber, he or she may excel in aesthetics, but have trouble building sufficient mass.
So now, let's pause it here.
There is more to...
I missed a little bit of that. I was looking at the comment, but yeah, so now they're going with the somatotyping, and I mean, red and white fibers. That's an old way of fiber typing, based on what you see in basically the plantar flexures of rodents, which were used for a lot of these studies early on.
Okay.
Because they have like a totally white soleus muscle, and they'll have a red and a white gastroc muscle, and they just look that way. And that nomenclature really isn't relevant at all today so much. And that idea, there's probably something to say with the way someone's bone structure manifests in terms of the matching fibers that they have, in terms of what their sort of genetic baseline programming would be for different fiber type distributions.
Yeah.
But they're pushing a little bit here. Because you got a guy like Dave Palumbo, for instance, who you look at Dave now, especially, or before he started training, he was an endurance athlete.
Yeah.
Right. And then he became Jumbo Palumbo, and his
300 pounds.
Yeah, and his midsection side. Before that started to get out of control. I actually saw him live at the USA's.
Yeah.
And so he did guest posing one time. It was just crazy. He was so friggin' big.
Yeah, he was.
So I would presume he probably had a lot of type 1 fibers, red fibers, so to speak. So but it sounds, the thing is, that's convincing, especially if that's way over the head of someone.
Yeah.
So this is really well done. Overall, I think I don't think there's this whole thing isn't attempting to just bamboozle people. This is an attempt to compile the scientific information that they sort of had available at that time point to some degree.
But to illustrate their points is, I think, where they're going to go with this.
Yeah, they're selling something too, right?
Yeah.
Muscle size, shape, and volume than muscle fibers. Muscle cells are complex, and the bodybuilding look also involves things like mitochondrial mass, the size of the internal organs of the cells that produce energy. Glycogenation, the amount of carbohydrate energy stored within the cell. The blood supply to the muscle. And water. Did you know that muscles are about 75% water?
Reps and sets.
Reps and sets, baby.
That'd be a good name for a podcast.
The basic unit in bodybuilding training is the repetition. Now, a repetition is made up of 2 key points. It's basically going to be the full extension of the muscle when the muscle is fully stretched out, and the full contraction of the muscle when the muscle is bunched up and is pulled together and shortened. So a repetition is going to be going back and forth between that extension and that contraction on every single body part. Now, repetitions combined together constitute a set. So a set, let's say in your workout, you are supposed to do a set of 12 repetitions. What you would be doing is 12 times in a row, be going from this contraction position to the extension position, back and forth until you get to 12. And that would constitute a set of the exercise.
A basic set in bodybuilding usually consists of 8 to 12 repetitions.
Is that Flex?
Why this number?
Oh, yeah.
I remember the name of the woman there.
I
think she passed on a while back, but she was big.
Subjected to about 70 to 75% of its 1 rep maximum strength, the maximum amount of weight the muscles can lift in that exercise one time. And when you do as many sets as you can with this amount of weight, you end up doing somewhere from 8 to 12 reps. Therefore, as you begin bodybuilding training with the Weider system, pick a weight for any exercise that lets you do at least
how many effective reps you think she had there?
But not so much that you can do more than 12.
Not many.
An exercise consists of a group of sets. This too can vary, but generally the Weider system recommends from 3 to 5 sets of any exercise and from 12 to 16 sets for any body part, with a few less for some
to make it look good
and certain kinds of training, and a few more for others. In bodybuilding training, you can end up resting for a shorter or longer period of time depending on what kind of set you're doing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
For mass training, for example, in tape 7, you rest for several minutes. Using certain intensity techniques
How about that
in
outfit?
tape 9, you may not rest at all between sets.
About
but
2 ounces
for the
of fabric
purposes
there.
of getting started with the Weider system workouts, you should rest from 30 to 60 seconds between sets. Or if you're training with a workout partner, do your set, rest while your partner does their set.
Okay,
then
so this
jump
is
back
high
in
volume,
and
baby.
do your next
30 to
set.
60 seconds. Yep.
It's interesting to have Dorian in a video like
You
this.
usually want to do
Yeah.
somewhere
I think they
between
filmed
8
these at different times, obviously.
and
Yeah.
12 or 15 repetitions in a set. So it is important to increase the weight because that's putting a different type of pressure that the body has to respond to.
Okay, so we're putting it all together now. We got progressive overload.
In the early days of the sport, bodybuilders trained like weightlifters, training the whole body 3 times per week. But they soon found out that you can't train the whole body in one workout and still have sufficient intensity for all the body parts. So eventually they began...
Is that true, Scott?
Depends on the volume. Depends on what you're doing, right? And depends on what you call sufficient.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you define that?
I don't know. Like, I mean,
what's sufficient? What's a sufficient amount of volume? And I'm not saying how many sets, but I'm just saying, how would you define a sufficient amount of volume? What are you getting? What does that take?
I think he said sufficient in the context of effort.
Oh.
So
okay.
Yeah, so the way they're setting this up, I think, is that if you try to train the whole body, obviously with the amount of volume that they're going to suggest or throw out here, that you'd do like a 4-hour workout because you just would be training so much, so many sets for so many exercises for all your muscle groups, everything, that by the end you'd just be a wasteoid. It wouldn't be effective training basically anymore.
Yeah.
So that's the sufficient thing. The idea, and I remember it wasn't that long ago. I remember talking to people with Fortitude Training and talking about, training the whole body, including legs, on one day. And like, you just can't do that. I'm like, we're not talking about 15 sets for your legs, and then trying to do deadlifts. Yeah. No, we're talking about a very small volume. So that's where they're going. So yeah, it's all about recovery and how you piece that together, and mindset. Some people just don't want to train the whole body at once. Yeah. They just don't. They want to focus. Today's my leg day. I focus on my legs. Today's chest and deltoids or what have you. Psychologically, especially with legs, this is another thing that I ran into a lot with some people, is they don't want to train legs every time they go in the gym or 3 times a week because legs are so hard. Yeah. They like to have this back and forth. Okay, I got my legs out of the way. Now I can have more of a beach day. I call like like chest and biceps the ultimate beach workout. It's just like, those are just great. You look good when your arms and your chest and your delts are all pumped up. But you train your back, you can't really see it. It's like, I got a great pump in my back, but I can't see it unless I go in the posing room, or I get out my cell phone and look at, myself in the mirror from behind or something.
Yeah, so, I kind of feel like the question I had to ask myself with that, as far as like some people don't like to, train the whole body or whatever, some people want to focus on one body part. Is it because that's what I really like, or is it because that's what I'm used to? That was the question I had to ask myself. Do I really like that, or is it just what I'm used to? What's the difference there?
And imagine you start off this way, training full body, and then you're someone who's a little bit obsessive compulsive, like we tend to be as bodybuilders. Yeah. And then you're like, I didn't train everything today. You get done, it's like, oh shit, I forgot to train arms, or I didn't train legs today. You'd almost feel guilty if you're if you're so used to doing full body that you didn't train everything, it's like, oh, I neglected that.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't feel right if you didn't do a full body workout, if you had done that for years and that was what you're used to. So that's a great point, man. It's what you're used to that defines, how difficult it is to change.
Yeah.
It's your baseline, your previous or current state that makes it difficult to go to a new one, potentially.
Following a system which Joe Weider called the split system of training, in which only part of the body is trained on any given workout and the entire body is trained over a period of days. The split system of training takes several forms.
One of the most popular types of training schedule is 3 days on, 1 day off. This is one example. Day 1, chest, shoulders, triceps, calves, abs. Day 2, back, biceps, forearms, calves, abs. On the third day, thighs, hamstrings, abs. And on day 4, rest. And this is an example of a workout arranged over a 4-day period. Day 1, chest, triceps, abs. Day 2, back.
14-year-old Scott would be taking notes right now.
Calves.
Oh, yeah.
Day 3, thighs.
How do you write this all out?
Yep.
Abs. And on day 4, shoulders and calves. And on the 5th day, you rest.
Now, of course, you're not a machine, so you want to make sure you get plenty of rest. If you need a day off, don't feel bad about taking that extra day off. Your recovery time is just as important as going in the gym
auto-regulation right here.
Yeah.
Overtraining can be devastating to your workout.
I think, here, pause here for a second.
Injury.
This is the thing that I don't think people caught on to so much. Like these standards, 3 on 1 off, 4 on 1 off, these splits, like these are age old, right? People are still doing these almost similar, exact same splits. But that idea that you just take a day off if you feel like you need one isn't one that doesn't stick. That didn't stick so well. I don't think.
That part didn't follow through so much.
It really didn't. Yeah. And when she was saying that, it was making me think of, this is one of the things that Dante really pushed, and that I also pushed with Fortitude Training, is that if you come in, it's not your day, especially with a program like that.
Yeah. Because
you better be on, or you're not going to go where you need to go with DC training or Fortitude Training.
Yeah, you're not going to BS your way through. It's not like a bicep workout.
Right. And especially with DC training, like the 2-way split of 3, you take a day off. Let's say you do a Monday, Wednesday, you come in on a Friday, and that's your 3rd training day of the week, and you're like, oh man, you just take that Friday off. Then you have a Friday and the Saturday and the Sunday. You come on the Monday. You just took 1 day off. But you've added up a lot of rest relative to what you've been used to. Yeah. And it can totally reset you. You don't have to have a deload or periodize or what have you. Just that 1 day off can totally refresh you and let you catch back up to where you can keep progressing for a while. And I mean, Joe knew that, right? Or he sensed that, or he built that in for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Into making this, and it's true. And you hear the classic story about Arnold and Franco. Sometimes they go in if it wasn't on, they would just go to the beach.
Yeah,
they just didn't feel right. There's stories about that I've heard and read years ago that was something that they would do if they came into the gym and they just weren't feeling it. They weren't getting a good pump, right? Or they just didn't want to. They wouldn't do that like a month out from the Olympia,
of course,
like that. But if it wasn't feeling right, then they would just say, "Hey, no." They turn around, leave the gym. And maybe go to the firehouse if that was around at the time. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or go get some food, and then they would just go to the beach and just chill and relax.
Yeah.
But take that extra day of rest if you need it.
Remember that overtraining, pushing your body too hard, increases your chances of injury. Therefore, you can add an extra rest day at any point in your workout program. Or if you're especially tired, try taking 2 days rest at the end of your 3-day routine or your 4-day routine. The point is, the more you're able to rest and recover, the stronger you'll be in your workouts and the better your body will respond.
Yep, that was Frank Hillebrand.
Yeah.
The guy before there,
with the
German guy, he passed away too.
You train twice a day instead of once. Training a major body part in the morning and doing detail work or cardiovascular training in the second workout. Using this system, you're actually doing less rather than more, because you're doing much of the work you'd normally do in one training session and dividing it into two.
Here's an example. Day 1, AM, chest, shoulders. PM, triceps, calves, abs. Day 2, AM, back, biceps. PM, forearms, calves, abs. Day 3, AM, thighs, hamstrings. PM, abs. And on the 4th day,
I wouldn't do that one.
rest.
That's ridiculous. Day 3,
It takes me 4 days to cover the full body.
I would do hamstrings
I
later,
train
maybe,
chest
and
and
not just
biceps
going to
on
do
day
abs.
1. On day 2, I train legs. And if you didn't notice, I train chest and biceps on day 1, which is part of, upper body. So then on day 2, I'm covering legs. So while I'm training legs, my upper body is getting a day of rest. Day 3, I go to shoulders and triceps, so I'm back to my upper body again. And day 4, I train back. And day 5 is my day off, and then I start over again.
I work with a split system. I split my body over 4 days, so that after my 4th days, I finished my whole body training.
When I started training, I was 16 years of age, so obviously I started on a 3 times a week schedule. I would do 1 exercise per muscle group, probably on a 10-8-6 basis, 10 reps the first 8 reps the same poundage, and 6 on the principle that my energy was diminishing. And of course it wasn't, but that's the way I thought, that my energy was diminishing. So I would do 10, 8, and 6. And as I progressed, then I started to realize that if I wanted to do more work and more overloading, I would have to work on split routines. So I would kind of split the body into 2 parts.
So now, was this training twice a day or just once?
No, this is once a day.
Right.
The only time I trained twice a day was 3 weeks before my first national contest, Mr. Britain. I just finished my business administration degree, and I had 3 weeks to train, and so for 3 weeks I trained morning and night. I trained twice a day.
I'll do a heavy and a light system, like 3 days on, 1 day off, and I'll go heavy on the first cycle, and then I'll go light for the next body part, and vice versa. It goes like that. The 4th day being my off day. I think all bodybuilders in general know that rule, and they use that.
See how she's signing there?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, she was deaf.
No kidding. I couldn't tell by the way she spoke.
I know. I don't know her story as to how when she lost her hearing, but yeah, she was deaf.
Yeah.
She was a really sweetheart from what I understand. Everything I heard about her was she was just really an amazing person.
They were saying that some people think of the idea of training for, muscle size versus tone, and that doesn't work. I'm glad to hear that. I expected, honestly, to hear a lot more BS in this video than what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't watched one of these for so long.
How many muscles you're training in one exercise? What kind of exercises you do? What kind of equipment you use?
Just take me way back, man. This is back when I was a kid. I was seeing all these athletes in the magazines back when I was still buying them.
Yeah.
My teens.
And what kind of intensity techniques you employ. In general, you build mass most effectively by doing 2 joint exercises. Exercises that involve the movement of 2 joints rather than 1.
Yeah.
How about that shit? They just said, I like it. I like it. That's compound movements are better for building mass.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's a Weider principle, baby.
So
that's interesting.
Is it? I'm starting to wonder, is it that the Weider principles were a bunch of hogwash, or how we've interpreted them and what we've thought they've been was what the hogwash was? You know what I mean?
I think like the one that people pick on the most is the muscle confusion principle. This idea, I don't know if this is in this tape or not. No idea.
Yeah.
And so that just he phrased that principle to make it understandable for the layperson. Like this is like, I mean, Bob Harris is explaining what a repetition is, and that repetitions together constitute a set, right?
Right.
For someone who has no idea what reps and sets are. So this is like real baseline stuff. So you come up with muscle confusion principle, that's basically training variety, right? A variety of training. And we've gone on on this podcast into what's going on there mechanistically in terms of activating muscle fibers and motor units. When you're doing different exercises, it does vary. You'll get soreness in exercises you haven't done for a while, even if your training effort and the reps and the relative load are all the same.
Yeah.
So there's something to say for that. And the loading curve is different, like the variety. There's various ways to say that. But he called it muscle confusion. So people are like, the muscle doesn't get confused.
Yeah.
And people, and people, I just heard this the other day. I can't remember where I saw it, where I heard it. And someone was saying, now I remember, all the muscle knows is tension. Something like that.
Yeah.
Like this. And it's like, no. The activation of muscles is very specific to the loads that it's encountering, and that's dependent upon the proprioceptive feedback that's coming through the joint receptors, the muscle spindles, the Golgi tendon organs, everything that's telling you how to move that load. Otherwise, if it were just like a rudimentary tension on, tension off system, we would be all moving around like robots and banging into the walls and knocking each other over.
Yeah.
So tension is controlled by rate coding, and so firing rates in motor units, whether they're on or off, rotation of motor, it's a highly complex system, even for rudimentary movements like most training exercises that we use here.
Yeah.
So anyway, that muscle confusion, just that term is what got people, but what's behind that, the idea that you'd change your exercises up, is a basic training principle. He just put another name to it, probably to make it sound, a little more like, I got to confuse the muscle, right?
Yeah.
Do something I haven't done before, and there's something to say for that. Really is. So I think he was picked on. That principle is picked on more than any, and it's unjust. It's undue.
I could see that. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here and see what else we have, because I don't think we'll get through the whole thing. But I think they're getting into cheating on your reps up here.
Cheating in weight training refers to using extra muscles or techniques like swinging the weight up using inertia to help perform the lift. Instead, lift and lower the weight using the specific muscles involved in that lift, with no help from other muscles and no cheating.
Notice they didn't show Dorian doing a bit of
barbell row. Yeah.
Sometimes I will when I'm weaker and I'm dieting and I'm not feeling really energy. I'll need to cheat a little bit because I don't have a trainer or someone that helps me.
Fourth, continuous tension. When you lift or lower a weight, you should feel your muscles working smoothly throughout the whole range of motion. This means not only lifting the weight under control to a position of peak contraction, but lowering the weight under control as well, rather than letting it drop.
Man. Dude, that's a big one that I still feel like I have to tell people when I look at clients training, is I still see people that aren't getting as much out of their reps as they could. And sometimes they're newer people. Sometimes they've been people that have been doing it for years, have been training in the gym for years and years. And it's like, there is so much more that we can get out of, a given weight. And I found myself that if I use, and I see, what I see, Scott, is I see constant tension is a technique to intensify the training. Like there are times that I might do like one rep and then pause, and then one rep and then pause. But if I can keep the tension in the pec through that whole set, I feel like to me, that was kind of a game changer for being able to add to my development. And you can end up getting more out of less weight too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. My muscle, it makes, so I got a whole presentation on quest for the perfect rep.
Yeah.
Where I go into a lot of the things you just kind of mentioned with a little more detail.
Sure.
But the way I kind of introduce the topic, and it's super important, is that our nervous system is set up to make things as easy as possible.
Yeah.
In terms of muscular fatigue and stress and strain on the muscle. So we're using stress shortening cycles, reflexes, using accessory muscles, extra muscles, using momentum, using swing, all this kind of stuff to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Rather than like doing a side lateral like Dorian was doing right there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most difficult possible way to get a dumbbell to that position, right?
Absolutely.
You'd never do it that way. Like if you want, you use two hands for one, of course.
Right.
And you keep it close to your body, wouldn't have extended out like that, and you probably would use you do like an overhead press, and you get up to the same level where he was, and that would be nothing, and you would kind of throw it up there.
Yeah,
that's what makes sense. So all those, like everything in our nervous system, especially, and I've told this story many times too, about this older gentleman. I was training him and his son. His son was going to be a client of mine. He wanted to bring his dad in with him too, because his dad had basically just kind of retired. He'd worked construction his entire life,
right? And
I couldn't get him to do a concentration curl for the life of me.
Yeah,
because he's got his elbow locked into his inner thigh, and he keeps on rolling his shoulder back and doing this and hinging with the weight, and it's like I couldn't get him to do it because he's like, that's not how you pick stuff up. He had learned how to survive through like 50 years of heavy duty construction work,
right? Not
by doing isolation movements every time you move heavy shit, right?
Yeah.
Use as much muscle as possible, make it as easy as possible. So. Yeah, the idea of bodybuilding is to have continuous tension. Like the pauses between reps eliminates fatigue. It allows metabolites to exit, and it gives you a reduction in energy demand so that you don't have to activate those high threshold motor units, right? Which are the ones we're trying to activate,
right?
Because we want to grow. We want to make things as hard as possible, not as easy.
The number of people that I see lock out and pause between every rep on the leg press is much higher. Like I would say almost 100% of people that I see do that movement that haven't been taught otherwise. That's just what we do because it's just what feels. That's what allows us to keep putting more plates on it. And now, maybe you're getting 12 plates, but I guess my challenge to everybody who's watching or listening to this right now would be to go back. Next time you train legs, next time you do the leg press, come just shy of locking out, just shy of it. And then when you go into your negative, use the utmost control in bringing it back down. You know what I mean? If you can do that using constant tension, and I'd say I'd go as far as every exercise, try to apply that and see what you get out of it. I guarantee you that the guy who's leg pressing 12 plates per side is going to have to drop that dramatically to be able to get, a good 10, 12 reps again.
That's why all the repetitions in Fortitude Training, they're all continuous.
Yeah.
And everything you do discontinuous sets in terms of muscle run, but they're all like that. And the thing is too, and Scott, you know this, like you start getting so strong where you could use 12 plates on the leg press or heavy loads on whatever it is. You don't want to use those. Your skeletal system, it's got plenty of stress to keep your bone mineral density high. You're good to go there. You don't need to be squatting 600 pounds. If you can do a 405 pound squat, and do it under control on the way down and continuously, it's much better on your skeletal system. And I've seen enough people over the years who were older who had just their joints were just wrecked from years and years of training. And you got to start with that young, as early as you can, doing continuous reps, get as strong as you can with that type of training.
Yep.
And there's something to say, like every once in a while, go for it. Like Jordan, for instance, does a lot of this. He'll do like sets, really low rep sets, because that tends to make you stronger, and it can bring you forward in certain ways neurologically. But to do that all the time, like that's a wrecking ball. You're asking for a wrecking ball for your joints.
Yeah,
so
if every time you get in a leg press, you're using so much weight that you're pausing to get 10. You do a rep pause, do one rep,
right,
and 2 reps. Pausing in between. And I can tell you that firsthand, I had a lot more knee tweaks doing that than I ever have now. Like, I think the amount of joint issues I've had since then has gone down dramatically.
Yeah, there was years ago when I was at University of Texas at Austin. I taught the weight training class. I was the GA for the weight training class that Jan and Terry Todd had there.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Victoria knows Jan really well, and Terry when he was still alive. And so I got to train with the powerlifters a couple of times, and they did they had a very basic training program which was really effective. They won multiple national championships, but they would do sets of 10 for like 3 weeks, sets of 5 for like 3 weeks, and sets of 3 for like 3 weeks, and then the week before they would go into the meet and basically do nothing. I think.
Yeah.
Something very, very, very close to that. And there was one athlete, I can't remember who it was exactly, but who kept on having trouble. You can go from those training loads and translate those into what you should be doing on the platform when you actually compete, right? And I remember watching this, and they couldn't figure it out. And when they were doing their sets of 5 at the time, and if you do sets of 5, you know, they're going to be pretty continuous. Maybe you need to set up between a rep, you know, but you do a set of 5. Well, this person was doing his or her sets of 5. It was a rep, and then and stand up, hold, wait, 5, 10 seconds, and then another rep. It was basically 5 near maximal efforts. Jeez. So instead of doing sets of 5 with like 85% of their 1 rep max, they were doing sets of 5 with like 93%.
Good,
you know,
God.
They
That's
could
brutal.
never have done a continuous. Oh, it was really brutal. These were like 1 minute long sets of 5 or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, that's just wreaks havoc on your nervous system too. But they never translated their lifts in because they weren't actually lifting with that percentage of their 1 rep max that others were when they're doing continuous reps. So you're going to lift heavier when you have those breaks in there than you would otherwise. You can keep your reps. And the thing too, and they haven't mentioned here, it's kind of a comment. They're talking about progressive, but they haven't mentioned logbooks. We may have skipped past it because we blasted through a thing, but like it's just sort of like intuitively, you know, make note of there's probably nothing there. But if you're trying to logbook your progress, and this is why I put this in Fortitude Training, if you start doing those discontinuous reps like that, you're going to be getting more reps just because you're strategizing your sets differently to minimize fatigue by taking breaks between reps.
Yeah.
Not because you're actually getting stronger and the performance is reflecting more muscle mass, hopefully, and whatever nervous adaptations you've made. So you can cheat yourself into basically thinking you're making progress, right? Because you're getting more reps when you should be taking a break and stepping back and deloading because it's time now to pull back on things. You just drive yourself to the point where now you're in a non-functional overreaching situation.
Yeah.
So anyway. Long diatribe.
Here
we go. Here it is.
Remember,
here it is.
You're
Mind in the
training
muscle.
Muscles, not lifting weights. Don't think about the weight. Think about the muscle and what it's doing.
Look at that bicep peak.
I know. It's a good thing they put him in a posing suit.
It's very important to mentally prepare yourself before going to a gym for a workout. If you're going to a gym to fraternize, then I wouldn't worry about mentally preparing yourself. But when you go to a gym to work out, which is what you should be doing, you have to concentrate, especially on the muscle that you're working. There's a mind-muscle link there where your body is going to react the way your mind feels. If you feel up for a workout, then you're going to get a great workout. If you feel lackadaisical and you don't really want to go to the gym, then there's no way you're going to get a good workout. So mentally preparing for a workout is just as important as stretching or anything else you would do to get ready.
I agree.
Yeah, I think he answered a different question he's talking about.
Finally,
that's not really the mind-muscle link.
Failure in a bodybuilding set is not the same as exhaustion. It means you've gotten to the point where you can't do one more rep with that particular weight in that set.
Are we going to see failure with 2 plates on the leg press here?
Oh,
that was not
it.
failure.
That was it. That's all he could get, Scott.
That was it. He got 8 reps with 180 pounds on the leg press.
About each and every repetition than it does to just say, okay, I'm going to do 12 repetitions with this super heavy weight, and all you're thinking about is moving that weight. You're not thinking about, let's say if you're doing squats, thinking about your quadriceps. Okay, in the first repetition, and thinking about the movement on the way up and the movement going down. And when you're really thinking about it, then the chances of injury are slim, you know, and the chances of that muscle responding is even better because you're really concentrating. So I think that's what the key is, and that's what's most important.
Bodybuilding, when it's done properly, involves learning a lot of skills. So it's going to pay for your success to learn those skills properly from the very beginning.
So
he's
true.
So well spoken. Yeah, he's so well spoken.
Here's a summation of the basic principles and training methods you've learned about in this tape. Train smart as well as hard. Bodybuilding type weight training is a very specific and intense method of changing the basic muscle structure of the body. And the key to success in bodybuilding training is utilizing all of the Weider training principles. Utilize the progressive resistance training principle. To make your muscles grow bigger and stronger, you have to contract them against the appropriate amount of weight. But as they adapt and begin to grow, that weight becomes too light to cause continued adaptation and the muscles stop responding. At that point, You add weight to the exercise to challenge the muscles further and continue to add weight on a progressive basis to keep pace with the continuing development of your muscle structure.
They were instructed to maximize their facial expressions.
Yeah, I think so.
The first rep looked as hard as the last one.
Bodybuilders aren't weightlifters and shouldn't use a weight that allows them to do too few sets. They aren't endurance athletes either and shouldn't do very high repetitions in most of their training. Bodybuilders have learned that a muscle responds best.
This is the classic way to go about it, right?
Yeah.
8 to 12. That's a 10.
Using this amount of weight generally allows you to do from 8 to 12 reps in any given set.
It's really important that you have a spot from behind when doing barbell curls.
5 sets per exercise, 12 to 16
Always
sets per
safety
body part.
first.
Too few sets and the muscles make
Man,
it
that's a
big,
pretty
but will
badass
lack detail.
behind the
Too
neck
many
press
sets
right
will
there.
limit
For
Yeah,
a girl.
she's going all the way down. Yep.
Yeah.
And increase your risk of injury.
I wouldn't even want to do that right now.
Yeah, that's a shoulder tweaker for some people. One of the guys I knew had the best belts I've ever seen. He used to do that with 2 1/4 all the way down to his straps.
Oh, God.
For like
Look at
sets
that.
of 15. Yeah.
Rest for 30 seconds to 1 minute.
Yep. So 3 to 5. I want to see if they say how many exercises we're supposed to do per muscle group, because then we're going to get the idea of the volume
but
here.
not so long that your training pace becomes too sluggish.
And always rub out your quads afterwards. Always rub the muscles.
The Weider split system principle. For most bodybuilders, a schedule of 3 days training.
That's an awesome St. Patrick's Day outfit right there. I tell you that.
Yeah.
Although some prefer
Badass.
using a 4-day
What was I think I saw? I missed that.
split
How many sets did
instead.
it a rep?
Oh, let's see.
Did it say so? I missed something.
Let's
A
see.
4-day on followed by 1-day
Yeah,
rest.
something popped up
seems
there.
to
Well,
work
that was the
best,
days on and off, I
Although
think.
some prefer using a 4-day on, 1-day off split instead.
That's what they're just talking about, the split. It's good.
All right.
Base your training program on the use of free weights. The body responds best to the resistance provided by free weights, where the muscles, joints, ligaments, and tendons are forced to cope with the force
So
of gravity.
pause here.
So the most effective...
Yeah.
It's fun. It's funny, interesting. So Kuba Cielo, and I just saw this, I think yesterday on his Instagram.
Uh-huh.
He had a big post. He may even be watching right now. I don't know, because I know he watches.
He would comment if he was watching. He'll be watching after, though, I'm sure. He's been enjoying this.
I like to see his comments, because he just said he made this big post as to why he thinks machines are better.
Oh, really?
Right?
Huh.
Yeah. So I don't want to speak for him. I can't remember exactly how he phrased it all, but like I literally just saw that, and I think they both have their place. You could argue, both directions. So
sure.
Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. They're saying here the free weights is the way to go. There's with all those machines,
yeah,
most of which are plate loaded, but still, they have been doing mostly free weights in this video.
Train with full range of motion repetition.
And there's a machine.
For maximum quality and development, do each
And Fado was so
through
awesome.
the fullest range of
His
motion
hair is
you
awesome.
can achieve comfortably.
Yeah.
From a position of full extension
Before he
to
tore his
that
pec.
of full contraction. Do not, however, overstretch the structures involved, or you could increase the risk of training injury.
I like how they phrase that.
Train
You could
with
increase the
continuous
risk.
tension. You should feel the muscle working continuously against the resistance throughout the range of motion of the exercise. Lift the weight under full control.
I love
and
that.
lower it under
There's
full
no rack
control.
behind him.
This helps you
No, yeah, where the hell is he going to rack that
Using
thing?
inertia can help throw the weight up, and the mistake of letting
He's
the weight
fucked.
drop during the negative part of the exercise.
I don't think that maybe they'll say something about safety and getting a
Keep
good
your
spot. I don't
mind in
know.
the muscle. Learn to feel what
Mind in the
muscles are
muscle.
working in any exercise,
Right.
and concentrate on exactly what they are
I think that's a
doing
reference
at
to
all
our show.
times. Technique
There
is of
you
little
go.
use without feel, and you
Little
develop
look
feel
into
in
the
bodybuilding
future.
training by focusing your attention on your muscles rather than on the weight they're lifting. Remember, you're
He's getting
training
pumped
muscle,
up there.
not lifting weights. So keep your mind in the muscle at all times for the maximum effective workout.
I see a lot of body language there. Actually,
Yeah,
to be honest.
for real.
I mean, but you could tell you had a good mind muscle connection. That's the interesting
When
thing.
you're doing something like
Here we're going to see the worst example of momentary muscular failure ever depicted.
Training to failure actually means
You got a guy
training
with
to
legs like
momentary
that.
muscular failure. And
he's
going to
do a set of
working to
failure.
total exhaustion.
You got it, come on.
It simply means you keep going in that set using that
Ooh,
weight
that was
until
it.
you can't do any more repetitions
was
without
it.
stopping to rest.
That's what failure looks like.
The split system is one of the most important principles. Without the utilization of the Weider split system in your workout, you'll never be able to achieve a symmetrical, proportionate, muscular body. Learn it, apply it,
Rich.
and you would develop
the
body that you always wanted. Now that you know how to use the split system, let's put it to use. In the next tape, my champions will show you how to apply the back exercises and the bicep exercises to broaden your back.
Broaden your back.
Bigger and more massive and more muscular arms.
Man, this is so good.
Yeah.
The key to me getting the best workout I possibly can every day is just to be very organized and to have some type of schedule. You know, I can't go in one morning at 7 o'clock in the morning and the next day at 5 o'clock at night. I like to train at the same time every day, and I like to eat like 2 hours before I train. And my schedule has to be very organized in order for me to get the best workout possible.
I've developed my physique to the point to where I'm happy with it, you know, with the size and everything, and I don't want to overpower anything. So just to keep everything in balance, you know, I'm more looking for the shape and balancing everything out now.
What I'd say to a woman just starting out in, let's say, weight training, and she doesn't really want to be a bodybuilder, is that the key is consistency.
Yeah.
And basically to come in and learn the basic exercises. Learn what exercises go for what body parts.
And the benefits that you get from a physical point of view, from a mental point of view, from a strength point of view, even from an emotional point of view, goes into the full aspect of your life and makes for better living and a better person and a better society.
Procrastination is the robber of opportunity. It's the great thief of time and opportunity. You know, and I think that there's no better time to do it than to do it right now.
You got to be motivated. When I started bodybuilding, I weighed 114 pounds. You know, I'm a diabetic. I'm 5'4".
He's a diabetic, right?
I won Mr. Universe, Mr. America.
Who is this?
The only way that you can really do
I'm blanking on his name. I guess Nick were watching, he'd know. Pause it for a sec.
Hey,
there's Franco.
Tired or sick.
Yeah, the guy was a diabetic. Pause for a sec.
I'll go back to it. I'll find it because I knew it was about over. Yeah. Yeah, diabetic bodybuilder.
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name right now.
I am too, but I know
right
who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was one of the people who he would vary his insulin depending on where he was, off season or in season, of course, because his glucose needs were changed too based on his diet and his activity and everything.
Yeah.
But he was the one of the guys that people first thought, okay, there's something to this insulin thing, because he was using larger amounts of insulin than what your typical diabetic would be using.
Yeah. Let's see. We know who Jason Poston is. We know that Anth Bales is. Anth Bales is a type 1 diabetic. Of course, I did a Google search here, though.
Oh, yeah. He's old school.
Yeah, yeah. These are the first people that are coming up. Mm-hmm. I know who that is, too.
Ronnie Rocco's a diabetic, too.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. I'm blanking on this guy's name. I want to go look for it. Ace bodybuilder.
You know who would know? John Hansen.
John Wood right off the bat. I just blanking on his names. All these people run right. They go. I recognize all of them immediately, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Tim Belknap.
Yeah. We got it at the same time, man. Yeah. I saw the name and I was like, oh, there he is. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim Belknap.
Here's a great shot of him, too. Oh, well,
He was thick,
Look
man.
how thick he is here, man.
Yeah, his midsection was a little big, but yeah, he's a thick dude.
That was a lot of muscle for the time, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, we hope you guys enjoyed this. We hope you learned something, and if you are doing like pausing all your reps on the leg press especially, that is my personal challenge to you, is next time you go train legs, just constant reps. And the thing I think people do is they make the mistake of when they do constant reps, then they just start pumping them out really fast. No. We're still going to use slow controlled negatives like you always would. Right.
My challenge to everyone is to try to outperform Bob Paris on the leg presses. You can get more than 8 reps
with 2 plates.
Yeah. Then you should have Bob Pear-sized legs at least by that time. Imagine you go to 3 plates, like you'll be Ronnie Coleman-esque, you know.
Yeah.
So,
all right, guys.
I tell
listen.
you what, though, that video, before quick, I want to give some kudos to that video. If someone's just followed that video and stuck with that, you know, there's some things missing, like maybe a logbook would be helpful just to make sure your progressive overload. But you're not going to go too far astray with that. Like you end up doing pretty dang well. That'll keep you going in the right direction for years, I would say. And
I'm really starting to feel, like I said, like I feel like some of the problems people have had with Weider principles were the interpretation and then what they've learned. Like they've learned the interpretation. I think that anybody who has issues with Weider principles, which I'm the first person to be like, come on, man, you know, but watching that video, like there's not really much I could argue with. There's a lot that I could expand upon. But that said, man, like you said, if you hadn't known anything, you came in and you watched that video, I think you'd have a hell of a foundation to start bodybuilding.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe sold it at the beginning that there was no one else actually out there. He had Flex and Muscle and Fitness at the time, and there might have been Shape. I don't know what other magazines were out at that moment. There was Muscle Mag International. There were the European versions of those magazines, but like he was close to the only game in town. He had Bob Kennedy to compete with, I think, and I may be missing something, but he, you know, that's like solid system. I mean, they went a little bit overboard, but they made it sound pretty sciencey and. You wouldn't go right. You wouldn't do that for 2 years if you followed that to a T and think, oh, I just wasted my time, unless you're just someone who has horrible genetics, you know?
Yeah. Well,
but you're not going to look like those pros either.
We should do that. Now, Menser had his training videos. You know, I would like to go back because the seminar that we watched was like way later in his life. I would like to go back to one of his training videos and maybe talk a little bit about that for another episode. I think that would be fun. Plus, that's a great soundtrack too. The music they had in his training videos were the bomb. Before they were like, before this came out. That's for sure.
I have one that I had on a VHS someone gave to me years ago, and I think I've got it somewhere on a disc.
You got it on a disc?
I think so. I think it's somewhere backed up.
We could pull something off YouTube. That'd be easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, listen. If you want to go into check out Scott's book, you can get it at byobcoach.com, and of course, go to Scott Stevenson too if you want to do any type of consultations, because you do consults. That's like really your main thing. You don't do like coaching like I do so much, as you do a lot more consultations. So somebody can come to you and say, "Hey, this is what I want to do with my bodybuilding." Do an hour consult with you, get that ball rolling. And then come back maybe in a couple months or whatever.
String them together however they want. They could be. I've had people do consultations every week for months on end.
There you go.
Only as needed. Yeah. So we've talked about this before, but absolutely, I'm available.
Yeah. So hit Scott up, and of course, reach out to me, mcnallydiets@gmail.com. I do more of the traditional coaching thing. I do consults as well, but not nearly as much as traditional coaching. And of course, check out our sponsors, TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK, SupplementSource.ca for Canada, and Strom Sports Nutrition if you're in the UK. Everybody from Patreon, we appreciate you guys very much. And for another episode of Muscle Minds with Scott Stevenson, we will see you soon.